my groupmate and I actually traveled with David Simpson, an author and baseball historian, physically to some of the locations of the sites of the old ballpark. So like American League Park, Union Park, Terrapin Park, all within a pretty close radius of each other, the old sites. So we went to them, it was pretty cool. We got to stand on a patch of grass outside of McDonald's, which was the location of the home plate of, I'm not sure which, but it was one of the old ballparks. So that was pretty neat and telling just how much has changed, over the years.
I think the biggest, I don't know, that's just a great question because besides from the building itself, which literally the building itself actually literally stands out in Baltimore. I might not have grown up going to Baltimore, living in Baltimore. I lived about 45 minutes away, but I grew up driving in New York all the time. You always take that drive and you always see Camden Yards and, the building that was heavily influenced by Camden Yards, M&T Bank Stadium. And we saw a lot of that with Memorial Stadium, but you always see those two structures. If anything stands out, it's just the beauty of the ballpark. It's just it's such a, it was done, every little thing was done with such intention. And it's you could tell, you go to the ballpark and as somebody who's been to Camden Yards so many times, sure, 10, 15 times, I was going to Camden Yards when I was 6 years old. I'm finding new things, not only about the ballpark, but in the ballpark. And I guarantee you that even after a long, extensive tour that I took for this project, I'm gonna still find out new things about the ballpark because it was done with such it was so influential because it was done with such purpose and people had fun with it. You could just tell people had fun with the ballpark.
A memorable experience was definitely coming across photos of opening day and early construction. It really showed, seeing the blueprint to physical space was very interesting. Seeing those scenes was eye-opening. It helped me understand how much planning and vision went into creating this landmark and this ballpark that would influence thousands of crowds, and even today, how special it is.
The Ben McDonald interview was really cool. Just as I said, just hearing him broadcast games for years and then getting to meet him, and he was just as nice and as energetic in person. So that was fun. But another one that really stood out was when the whole crew we rented a van and went up to the Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia to interview John Miller. That was just such a cool experience because it was a new ballpark I've never been to. It was talking to a legendary baseball broadcaster, and just the experience of all of us as a group, taking the road trip on I don't even remember what day of the week, a random day of the week, and just having a lot of fun.
It's hard to single out any specific moment that stands out over another. I thought all the interviews we did were so different. You had different people on different sides of the aisle that had varying views about Camden Yards. One day in the morning we talked to someone who's firmly against it and doesn't want taxpayers to suffer a larger burden because of a stadium. And then later that day we talked to someone who is so for and passionate about Camden Yards. So I do think learning the nuances about it was really interesting. Obviously, I love the tour of Camden Yards and getting to see the things that I wouldn't have seen as just a fan.
I think I just really enjoyed going around and getting to interview these people and really pick their brain about the project. I mean, I was the design side, as I mentioned earlier, but I think it was interesting. I believe I was there for the Kim McCullough, David Ashton, and both the Janet Marie Smith interviews. And I thought it was just so interesting to be able to hear all of the stuff that they had to say about everything to do with it, and also just seeing Janet Marie Smith have all of this baseball memorabilia around her and even bring out the Dodgers World Series ring from, I believe, 2024. Stuff. It was cool being able to see that.
Oh wow, a memorable experience. I don't really want to say this because I feel like everyone has said it, but I did enjoy that first tour that we went to of Camden Yards, even though I had used to work at the ballpark. But it was great because I got to see like new places I never saw before. Like I didn't realize how old this warehouse was. I didn't realize there was a coal chute there. Like that's super crazy. Like, I mean, I've heard of trash chutes before, but like we don't even use them nowadays. But like a coal chute, that's super crazy. That was a very memorable moment. I would say some more memorable moments. I really enjoyed some of the interviews I did. I loved interviewing Bruce Hoffman, who used to be the executive director for the MSA. He's a very nice, sweet old man. And then, yeah, it was really cool. I think especially getting to interview Larry Max too, who his father, Morton Max, was one of the owners of the warehouse before the MSA bought it. And it was really great. That kind of felt like in my career, like the very first big interview I got to do. So that was nice.
I have a lot of memorable experiences with this project, but I think to me the most is walking on the field at Camden Yards for the first time. Really being able to appreciate the ballpark in a way that you can't otherwise. I mean, just being there in person and seeing it at the field level from the player's perspective and what it would be like with the thousands of fans that fill the stadium is truly pretty remarkable. And then it gives you an appreciation for how they built the ballpark, because this is about creating Camden Yards and seeing the steel trusses and the brick. So I'd say being there field level was the most memorable for me.
There are a lot of different like things that I could point to. The most memorable I would say would be that trip to Indianapolis to interview Pete Ward. Just because that was so different. That was really my first time really like on my own in a completely new city, kind of living that sort of like journalism life. That Friday, I woke up early. We had to meet, Eli and I had to get to the Colts facility, I think by like 10 a.m. We got there, they were super accommodating, set us up in the press room where they have all of the press come in for the press conferences. This was also during a busy time for the Colts. This was like right after free agency, after they had made a number of moves and there was a lot going on in their facility. So to be able to be granted that space to interview Pete Ward was really cool. They also had like the, every single different press member, they had like assigned seating and like a paper for each of them for like where they were supposed to sit, which I thought was pretty cool. So being able to see that NFL facility was really cool. And then later that day, had to work on a preview for the men's game that night. I had a midterm to take for one of my business classes. So that was probably my most memorable experience overall. But like there were also so many different ones, like being able to go behind the scenes at Camden Yards was really cool. Being able to, as most of us know, our initial interview with Janet Marie Smith didn't go so well audio-wise, so being able to have the trust placed in us, that being Henry Lilienfeld, Bodie Ramsey, and myself, for us to go back on our own to Baltimore, set it up and run it ourselves, was like, that was also really cool.
The first one I think of is the initial tour of Camden Yards. That was really cool, seeing, you know, the clubhouse, seeing the locker room, seeing the stuff that, you know, you don't typically get to see. And just seeing the, you know, the suite level, actually walking on the field. And then our tour guide was also very helpful with pointing out certain details that were pretty unique and then explaining the history of it. Just like getting that in-depth of a tour of a ballpark, I've never had that. I mean, I've been to a few ballparks, but obviously just from a fan perspective, seeing like basically every level of the ballpark was pretty cool. And then the other one is probably the Joe Spear interview, just because of me talking to the guy that's responsible for one of the most important ballparks ever. It's always pretty cool.